Hello everyone. In today's video, I bring you a moving and transformative story. We will meet Thaddeus Stone, a mechanic who, after a terrible accident, had a near-death experience that led him to a divine revelation. He returned with an urgent message about a spiritual portal set for 0909, which promises to bring profound transformation to humanity. So, before we start, go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any content like this, and hit the bell to receive all notifications. Now, get ready for this surprising journey full of revelations. My name is Thaddeus Stone, and I'm a simple man from Greenville, Ohio. I've spent most of my life as a diesel engine mechanic, focused on keeping the trucks in our small town running. I was never the type to seek answers in the stars or the great mysteries of life. My faith was simple, based on what I could see and touch. My wife, Ava, and I lived a quiet life, focused on hard work and the community around us. Before the accident that changed everything, I was known as the guy who could fix any engine. My shop was my sanctuary, full of tools, parts, and the constant hum of machines. It was there that I felt most at home, with grease-stained hands and the smell of diesel in the air. I believed my life had a clear purpose: to keep things running, to ensure the trucks stayed on the road, and for people to count on me when something broke. Ava handled the finances and the office, keeping everything in order while I managed the mechanical side. We had a comfortable routine, a life that made sense to us. On Sundays, we went to the local church, more out of tradition than a deep spiritual search. I respected faith, but I had never experienced anything I could call truly supernatural or divine. Then, in November of 2006, everything changed. What started as an ordinary workday turned into the most extraordinary experience of my life. A near-fatal accident opened my eyes to a reality I never imagined existed. This is the experience I want to share today, not just to tell my story, but to convey an important message I received during my journey beyond death. What I'm about to say may seem unbelievable to some. Until recently, I would have found it hard to believe myself. But I ask you to listen with an open mind, because what I experienced completely changed my perspective on life, death, and the purpose of our existence. This is the story of how I, Thaddeus Stone, an ordinary mechanic from a small town, was taken on a journey beyond the limits of life and death, and how that experience transformed me into a messenger of a truth I never imagined carrying. It was a day like any other in the shop. The familiar clanging of metal against metal, the hiss of welds, and the roar of engines filled the air. I was working on a large logging truck, lying underneath it, making the final adjustments. Leonard Chard, my assistant, was nearby, handing me tools as I asked for them. Ava was in the office, probably doing the month's accounts or answering calls from clients. I remember clearly the smell of oil and grease, the feel of cold concrete against my back as I stretched to reach a particularly tough part. The truck was suspended by a hydraulic jack, something I had done hundreds of times before. There was nothing special about that moment, nothing to warn me of what was about to happen. Suddenly, I heard a sound that chilled my blood, a metallic snap followed by a creak. Before I could react, I felt the weight of the world collapse on top of me. The jack had given way, and tons of metal were crushing my body against the floor of the shop. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. It was as if every nerve in my body was screaming at once. I felt my bones crack, my organs being compressed. The air was knocked out of my lungs, and I struggled desperately to breathe. My vision blurred, dark spots dancing before my eyes. I heard screams in the distance. Leonard's voice, calling my name in panic. The sound of running footsteps, Ava screaming for help. But everything seemed far away, as if I were hearing through a thick wall. Amid the excruciating pain, a clear thought emerged in my mind. This is it. I'm dying. There was no fear in that thought, only a strange acceptance. In an instant, my whole life flashed before my eyes. I saw Ava on our wedding day, smiling radiantly. I saw my father teaching me to fix my first engine. I saw the faces of all the customers I had helped over the years. As my body fought to survive, my mind turned to God. It wasn't an elaborate prayer, just a simple, desperate plea, "Jesus, help me." It was at that moment, suspended between life and death, that something extraordinary happened. The pain began to lessen, not because it was going away, but because I seemed to be moving away from it. Suddenly, I found myself floating above the scene. I could see my own body crushed beneath the truck, Leonard desperately trying to lift the vehicle, Ava crying on the phone, probably calling for an ambulance. But I was no longer trapped in that broken body. I was free, floating, watching everything from a completely new perspective. This was the beginning of a journey that would change my life forever. As I watched the scene below, a feeling of peace enveloped me. It was as if all the worries, fears, and pains of earthly life had been removed. I felt light, free from a burden I didn't even know I was carrying. Suddenly, I noticed two imposing figures beside my physical body. They were angels, taller than any human I'd ever seen, over 6 feet tall. Their forms were luminous, almost translucent, radiating an energy that I could feel even in this ethereal state. The angels leaned over my body, placing their hands over my crushed abdomen. Though I could no longer feel physical pain, I could sense a kind of warmth or energy emanating from their hands. It was as if they were trying to heal my body, or perhaps preparing it for something more. While this was happening, I began to notice changes in the environment around me. The shop, which had always been a familiar and comfortable place for me, now seemed strangely two-dimensional, as if it were just a shadow of reality. The colors became more vibrant, and I could see waves of energy pulsing through everything, the walls, the tools, even the people below. I tried to call out to Ava, to Leonard, but my voice made no sound. I realized I was no longer connected to the physical world in the way I was used to. It was a strange sensation, but not frightening. In fact, I felt a growing curiosity about what was happening and where this experience would take me. Then I noticed something even more extraordinary. A silver cord, as thin as a spider's thread but shining like the moon, connected my ethereal form to my physical body below. I instinctively understood that this was my link to earthly life, the last anchor tying me to the world I knew. As I contemplated this new reality, a light began to form in the corner of my vision. It wasn't like any light I had ever seen before. It was bright but not blinding. Warm, but it didn't burn. It was as if the very essence of love and compassion had taken physical form. The light grew, filling my entire field of vision. And with it came a presence. I cannot adequately describe what I felt at that moment. It was as if the entire universe had condensed into a single point, and that point was calling me. Without hesitation, without fear, I allowed myself to be drawn into this light. The world of the shop, the angels, my own body. All of it faded away as I plunged into this new reality. It was the beginning of a journey beyond anything I could have imagined, an experience that would fundamentally change who I was and how I saw the world. As I entered the light, I was enveloped by a sense of unconditional love so deep that it's almost impossible to describe in words. It was as if every atom of my being was bathed in pure compassion and acceptance. At that moment, I understood that I was in the presence of something or someone far beyond my human comprehension. I was in the presence of God. I didn't see a bearded figure sitting on a throne, as we often imagine. Instead, it was a presence, a consciousness so vast and complete that it seemed to fill all space and time. There were no spoken words, but the communication was clearer and more direct than any conversation I've ever had. In an instant, my entire life unfolded before me. Every moment, every decision, every interaction, it was all there, not as a judgment, but as an opportunity for understanding and growth. I saw the moments when I was kind, and the times when I failed to show compassion. I saw the lives I had touched, often without even realizing it. In this life review, I understood that every action, no matter how small, had an impact on the great fabric of existence. The smile I gave a stranger, the kind word to a frustrated customer, the extra time I spent teaching Leonard, all of these created ripples of positivity that extended far beyond what I could see. But the most surprising revelation came next. God, this ineffable presence, began to show me something beyond my own life. I saw the Earth, our beautiful blue planet, spinning in space. I saw humanity in all its diversity and complexity. And then, I saw something that took my breath away. A portal. This portal wasn't physical but spiritual. It was like a window of opportunity, a moment of cosmic alignment, and associated with it was a date. 0909. I understood, without needing explanations, that this date marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. I saw waves of energy emanating from this portal, touching every human being on Earth. Some people seemed to awaken, as if they were emerging from a long sleep. Others appeared frightened or confused, but everyone, without exception, was affected in some way. I realized that this 0909 portal represented a unique opportunity for the spiritual evolution of humanity. It was a call for a collective awakening, a chance to transcend the limitations of the ego and embrace a higher consciousness. As I received these revelations, I felt an overwhelming love for all of humanity. I saw that despite our flaws and conflicts, every human being was a unique and precious expression of the divine. I understood that we were all connected, part of a great web of life that extended beyond our planet, beyond our universe. It was at that moment of cosmic understanding that I felt a gentle yet firm indication that my journey wasn't over yet. There was a purpose for me, a mission I needed to fulfill. I had to return and share what I had learned, to prepare people for the great transformation that was coming. With a mix of reluctance and determination, I felt myself being gently guided back. The light began to fade, and the sense of unity with the divine started to dissipate, but the love, understanding, and sense of purpose remained with me as strong as ever. I was returning, no longer as the Thaddeus Stone who had entered the shop that morning, but as someone who had glimpsed the secrets of the universe and now carried a vital message for the world. As the divine light dimmed, I felt myself being pulled back into the physical world. It was like plunging into cold water after being in a warm, comforting environment. The transition was abrupt and, for a moment, disorienting. I found myself floating above the accident scene again, but something had changed. The initial chaos had given way to more organized activity. Paramedics surrounded my body, working frantically. Ava stood nearby, hands clasped in silent prayer. Leonard looked in shock, sitting in a corner of the shop with a vacant stare. As I watched, I noticed a young woman outside the shop. She was on her knees, eyes closed, hands raised, praying fervently. I vaguely recognized her, Shannon, a recent convert from our church. We hadn't spoken much, but there she was, interceding for my life with an intensity that touched me deeply. At that moment, I felt a force pulling me back into my body. It was as if Shannon's prayers had created a channel, a bridge between the spiritual and physical worlds. I hesitated for a moment, remembering the peace and love I had experienced in the divine presence. But then I remembered the mission entrusted to me, the purpose I now carried. With a mixture of determination and reluctance, I allowed that force to pull me back. The transition back into my body was intense and disorienting. It was like being sucked through a tunnel at high speed, colors and sensations rushing past in a blur. Suddenly, I felt an impact, as if I had fallen from a great height, and my eyes opened. The pain returned with full force, making me gasp. The shop light seemed blinding, and the sounds were deafening. I heard excited voices around me, someone shouting, "He's back! He's breathing!" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and no sound came out. I felt gentle hands touching me, voices telling me to stay calm. That help was on the way. Everything seemed confused and chaotic after the peace I had experienced. As the paramedics worked on me, preparing me for transport to the hospital, my mind was in a whirlwind. The memories of what I had experienced, the light, the divine presence, the revelations about the 0909 portal, all felt so vivid and real. At the same time, they seemed distant, like a dream beginning to fade upon waking. I remember seeing Ava's face, bathed in tears but with a smile of relief. She held my hand, and I wanted to tell her everything I had seen, everything I had learned. But the words wouldn't come. All I could do was give her hand a slight squeeze, trying to convey through that simple gesture all the love I felt. As I was carried to the ambulance, I saw Shannon still on her knees, now crying and laughing at the same time. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw in her a knowing that went beyond words. Somehow, she knew her prayers had been heard, that she had played a crucial role in my return. On the way to the hospital, I drifted in and out of consciousness. The pain was constant, but there was something stronger keeping me alert, a sense of purpose, an urgency to share what I had experienced. I knew my journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. My mission was clear. I needed to share this truth with the world, to prepare people for the great transformation that was coming. The road ahead would be difficult. I knew that. There would be doubt, disbelief, perhaps even ridicule. But none of that mattered. I had seen beyond the veil of reality, and I could no longer live as if that knowledge didn't exist. As the ambulance sped through the streets of Greenville, I made a silent promise to myself and to God. I would dedicate the rest of my life to this mission. The 0909 portal was coming, and I would do everything in my power to help humanity prepare for this monumental transformation. The days following the accident were a constant battle between life and death. I drifted in and out of consciousness, with moments of lucidity and long periods of unconsciousness. The severity of my injuries was evident in the worried expressions of the doctors and nurses who attended to me. I remember fragments of those first days in the hospital, the constant sound of machines monitoring my vital signs, the sterile, antiseptic smell that permeated the air, the soft voices of the healthcare professionals, discussing my case in terms I barely understood. The pain was a constant presence, sometimes sharp and excruciating, other times a dull hum that seemed to emanate from every cell in my body. The doctors kept me heavily medicated, but even so, the pain found ways to make itself known. During the moments of consciousness, I struggled to communicate what I had experienced. I wanted to tell everyone about the light, about the unconditional love I had felt, about the 0909 portal and the message I needed to share. But my voice was weak, my throat sore from the breathing tube that had been removed. The words came out confused, incoherent. Ava was always by my side, holding my hand, speaking words of encouragement. I could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the signs of sleepless nights and constant worry. But there was something else in her gaze, a steadfast hope, a strength that seemed to come from a place beyond herself. It was during one of Ava's visits that I received the news about the extent of my injuries. The doctor explained, with a carefully controlled voice, that the accident had caused extensive damage to my digestive system. A large part of my intestine had been crushed, and they had to remove a significant portion during emergency surgery. Mr. Stone, the doctor said, under normal circumstances, I would have been crushed by the prospect of living with such a limitation. But something strange happened. Instead of despair, I felt a surprising calm. I remembered the feeling of love and acceptance I had experienced during my journey beyond life, and I knew that, somehow, everything would be fine. I looked at Ava, who had tears in her eyes, and squeezed her hand as hard as I could. With a hoarse but determined voice, I said, "We'll get through this together. I have something important to do. I can't give up now." In the days that followed, I faced a series of challenges. My body struggled to adjust to the new reality. There were days when the pain and discomfort seemed unbearable. Others when the frustration of not being able to do the simplest things on my own brought me to the verge of tears. But amid all this, something extraordinary began to happen. I started to have more out-of-body experiences. During these episodes, I found myself once again floating above my body, watching the doctors and nurses at work. Sometimes, I traveled beyond the hospital, seeing scenes and places I could not have known. Each time this happened, I felt a renewal of my purpose. It was as if I were being constantly reminded of the importance of the mission entrusted to me. These experiences gave me the strength to face the physical challenges, to fight against the medical odds. And then, something even more incredible happened. One day, while I was lying in the hospital bed focusing on my recovery, I felt a presence in the room. I opened my eyes and saw a man I had never seen before. He introduced himself as a minister from a church in a distant city, saying that God had woken him in the middle of the night with a message to come and pray for me. When he placed his hands on me and began to pray, I felt something I can only describe as a current of energy flowing through my body. It was warm, comforting, and incredibly powerful. I closed my eyes and, in my mind, saw a vivid image of my intestine regenerating, growing, and healing. In the days that followed that prayer, the doctors were perplexed by my sudden and inexplicable recovery. Tests showed that my intestine was indeed regenerating in a way that defied medical understanding. As I watched the confused faces of the doctors, I couldn't help but smile. I knew I was witnessing a miracle, a tangible proof of the divine power I had encountered during my near-death experience. It was yet another confirmation that my journey was just beginning, and that the universe was conspiring to help me fulfill my mission. As my recovery progressed, I began to share my story with anyone who would listen. I talked about the light, the unconditional love, and the 0909 portal. Some people looked at me with skepticism, others with fascination, but for me, it didn't matter whether they believed or not. I knew what I had experienced, and I knew I had an important message to share with the world. My journey of recovery was long and challenging, but each day brought me closer to fulfilling the purpose I had discovered. And as I prepared to leave the hospital and face the world again, I knew that nothing would ever be the same. I had been transformed, not just physically, but spiritually. And now, my true mission was about to begin. When I was finally discharged from the hospital, the world seemed like a completely new place. Colors appeared more vibrant, sounds sharper. It was as if my senses had been heightened, allowing me to perceive nuances of reality that had previously gone unnoticed. My first morning at home was a surreal experience. Sitting at the kitchen table, eating a simple breakfast that Ava had prepared, I was overwhelmed by a wave of gratitude so intense that it brought me to tears. Every bite, every sip, was a reminder of the miracle of my survival and recovery. Ava watched me with a mixture of joy and concern. She had been my rock throughout the ordeal, but I knew she was still adjusting to the changes that had occurred in me. It wasn't just my body that had been transformed, but my very essence. "Thaddeus," she said softly, placing her hand on mine. "I know exactly why I'm here and what I need to do." I began explaining to her once again about my experience beyond life. I spoke about the light, the unconditional love, the feeling of oneness with all that exists, and then, carefully, "I know you wouldn't make something like this up. If you say this is real, that you have a mission to fulfill, then I believe you, and I'll stand by you, no matter what happens." Her words filled me with an indescribable joy. Having Ava's support meant everything to me. I knew the road ahead would be challenging, that we would face skepticism and perhaps even ridicule. But with her by my side, I felt capable of facing anything. In the days that followed, I began to notice subtle changes in my perception of the world. It was as if a veil had been lifted, allowing me to see the interconnectedness of all things. I would observe people on the street and could feel their emotions, their struggles, their joys. Nature seemed to speak to me in a new and profound way. Every leaf, Every cloud, every drop of rain seemed to carry a message, a reminder of the beauty and complexity of creation. My relationship with time also changed. The future, which once seemed so uncertain and sometimes frightening, now presented itself as a field of infinite possibilities. The past, with all its joys and sorrows, felt like a gentle teacher, offering valuable lessons. And the present became a precious gift, each moment an opportunity to experience life in its fullness. I began meditating regularly, seeking to reconnect with that sense of oneness I had experienced during my journey beyond life. During these meditations, I sometimes received glimpses and insights about the 0909 portal and what it would mean for humanity. They were like pieces of a grand cosmic puzzle, slowly coming together to form a larger picture. One morning, during one of these meditations, I had a powerful vision. I saw the earth wrapped in a network of light, connecting all living beings in a web of consciousness. I saw the 0909 portal opening, pouring transformative energy over the planet, and I saw people from all over the world awakening, their eyes opening to a new reality. When I emerged from the meditation, I knew what I needed to do. I called Ava and shared my vision with her. "We need to start spreading the message," I told her. "We can't keep this to ourselves. The world needs to know. It needs to prepare." Her question caught me by surprise. I had the vision, I had the message, but I had no idea how to start sharing it with the world. For a moment, I felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task ahead. But then, I remembered the sense of purpose and guidance I had experienced during my journey beyond life. I took a deep breath and let that feeling guide me. "We start with our community," I finally responded. "With the people who know us, who trust us. We'll share my story, talk about what I learned and about the 0909 portal. Maybe we can organize small discussion groups, create a space where people can ask questions and explore these ideas together." Ava nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "I can talk to the pastor at our church," she suggested. "Oh, maybe he'll let us use the church hall for these meetings." And so, our journey to spread the message began. In the days and weeks that followed, we dedicated ourselves to sharing the message. We started with small groups at our home, inviting friends and neighbors to hear my story. At first, many came out of curiosity or concern for my health after the accident. But as I shared my experience and spoke about the 0909 portal, I saw something change in people's eyes. Some were skeptical, of course. Others seemed frightened by the implications of what I was saying. But there were those whose eyes lit up with recognition, as if something deep inside them was responding to the truth I was sharing. One of those people was Shannon, the young woman who had prayed for me on the day of the accident. She became a constant presence at our meetings, always asking insightful questions and sharing her own intuitions. Her faith and enthusiasm were contagious, inspiring others to open themselves to the possibilities I was presenting. As our message spread, we began receiving invitations to speak at other churches, community groups, and even small local conferences. Ava and I formed the perfect partnership. I shared my experience and the revelations about the 0909 portal, while she organized the events and handled the practical aspects of our growing mission. We decided to found a nonprofit organization called Sweetbread Ministries. The name was a reference to the sense of sweetness and spiritual nourishment I had experienced during my journey beyond life. Through this organization, we began reaching a wider audience, offering lectures, workshops, and spiritual retreats. However, not everything was easy. We faced our share of challenges and opposition. Some local religious leaders accused us of spreading heresy. Skeptics labeled us as frauds or lunatics. There were moments when the pressure felt overwhelming, when I questioned whether I was doing the right thing. But then, something would always happen to reaffirm my faith and purpose. Sometimes it was an email from someone whose life had been transformed by our message. Other times, it was a mystical experience during meditation, reminding me of the reality of what I had experienced. One night, After a particularly challenging event where we faced a lot of resistance, Ava and I were sitting in our backyard, gazing at the stars. The sky was exceptionally clear, and the vastness of the universe seemed almost palpable. "Do you think we're making a difference?" Ava asked softly, her voice barely audible over the chirping of crickets. I looked at the starry sky, letting my mind expand to that sense of unity I had experienced, and in that moment, I felt a deep certainty. "Yes," I replied. "Every person we reach, every mind we open to new possibilities, is like a small light being lit. And when the 0909 portal opens, all those lights will come together, creating something beautiful and transformative." Ava squeezed my hand, and we sat there in silence, contemplating the night sky. I felt a wave of gratitude for everything we had been through, for everything still to come. Our journey was far from over, but I knew, with every fiber of my being, that we were on the right path. The 0909 portal was coming, and with it, a new era for humanity. And from our small town in Ohio, we were doing our part to prepare the world for this great transformation. As our mission progressed and the date of the 0909 portal approached, I began to notice an increase in synchronicities and unexplained events around me. It was as if the universe was conspiring to confirm the importance of our message and the reality of what was to come. One morning, while drinking my coffee, I noticed that the kitchen clock had stopped at 9:09. That same day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was someone wanting to schedule a lecture for September 9th. These numerical coincidences became so frequent that they could no longer be ignored. Additionally, I began having vivid, prophetic dreams. In one of them, I saw a wave of blue-violet energy sweeping over the planet, touching every living being with its transformative light. I woke up with a renewed sense of urgency, knowing that we needed to intensify our efforts to reach more people. Ava also began to experience strange phenomena. During one of our lectures, something truly extraordinary happened. I was speaking about the importance of being open to the changes the 0909 portal would bring, when suddenly, all the lights in the room began flickering in unison. The most surprising thing was that, when I looked at the digital clock on the wall, it showed 9:09 regardless of the actual time. The audience was stunned, some scared, others in awe. I felt a wave of energy surge through my body, and the words flowed from me with a clarity and power I had never experienced before. It was as if, at that moment, I was directly channeling the message I had received during my near-death experience. After this event, our message began to spread even faster. People from all over the country, and even from other countries, started reaching out to us. We received emails and letters from individuals who reported having had dreams or visions similar to mine, all pointing to the significance of the 0909 portal. One night, while meditating, I had a powerful vision. I saw the Earth from a cosmic perspective, spinning in space. As the date 0909 approached, I saw lines of light forming around the planet like an energetic network. These lines seemed to connect people, places, and events in ways I didn't fully understand, but I knew were significant. I shared this vision with Ava and our closest circle of supporters. Shannon, in particular, was deeply moved by it. She began creating artwork based on my descriptions, vibrant paintings that captured the essence of what I had seen. These paintings became a powerful tool in our presentations, helping people visualize what was to come. As we neared the date of the portal, the intensity of the signs and synchronicities increased. People reported seeing the numbers 909 everywhere, in license plates, on shopping receipts, on billboards. Some told us about sudden spiritual awakenings or unexplained healings that occurred after hearing our message. One of the most remarkable events happened during a trip we took to California for a series of lectures. We were driving along the coast when, suddenly, the sky filled with an intense blue-violet glow. It wasn't like anything I had seen before. It wasn't a normal sunset, nor the northern lights. It was as if the sky itself was sending us a sign. We pulled over to the side of the road, amazed by the spectacle. Others stopped too. all gazing at the sky in wonder. In that moment, I felt a deep connection with everyone present, as if we were all united by a silent understanding that something extraordinary was happening. The phenomenon lasted only a few minutes, but its impact was lasting. In the following lectures, many people in the audience mentioned seeing the same blue-violet sky, some even from different parts of the country. It was as if a global signal was being sent, preparing people for what was to come. Meanwhile, our organization, Sweetbread Ministries, continued to grow. We began receiving invitations to appear on radio programs and even on some local TV shows. While some treated us with skepticism, many were receptive to our message. I realized that people were hungry for hope, for a sense of purpose in a world that often seemed chaotic and directionless. One night, after a particularly intense radio interview, I received a call from an unknown number. It was a scientist from a renowned university. He had heard the interview and wanted to tell me about some anomalies his lab was detecting, fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field that seemed to be increasing as we approached the date 0909. "I can't explain this scientifically," he told me, his voice a mix of excitement and confusion. "But something is happening, Mr. Stone. Something big." Those words resonated deeply within me. It was yet another confirmation that what I had experienced during my near-death experience was real, and that the 0909 portal was not just a spiritual concept, but something that was having measurable effects in the physical world. As the synchronicities and signs became more frequent and intense, I began to feel a shift within myself. It was as if my consciousness was expanding, allowing me to perceive layers of reality that had previously been hidden. Sometimes, I could almost see the lines of energy connecting people and events, like in the vision I had during meditation. Ava noticed the change in me. One night, as we sat in our backyard, gazing at the stars, she held my hand and softly said, "You're different, Thaddeus. It's like you're glowing from within." I smiled at her, feeling a wave of love and gratitude. "It's the portal," I replied. "It's getting closer, and it's transforming us. All of us." That night, I had a vivid dream. I saw myself standing before a massive portal of light. On the other side, I could see a transformed world, not in its physical appearance, but in the energy it emanated. It was a world of harmony, mutual understanding, and deep connection between all beings. A voice, the same one I heard during my near-death experience, spoke to me. "The portal is almost open, Thaddeus. Keep doing your work. Every person you reach is a light that is lit, preparing the way for the great transformation." I woke up with tears in my eyes, feeling a mixture of joy, anticipation, and a renewed sense of purpose. The 0909 portal was coming, and with it, a new era for humanity. And I, Thaddeus Stone, a simple mechanic from a small town in Ohio, had the privilege of being part of this great change. As the day of 0909 approaches, I feel the atmosphere around us becoming increasingly charged with anticipation. It's as if the very air is vibrating with an energy I can't fully explain. Our work at Sweetbread Ministries has reached a frantic pace, with requests for information and invitations to speak coming from all corners of the world. Ava and I barely have time to sleep. We spend our days answering emails, giving interviews, and organizing events. The nights are dedicated to meditation and prayer, seeking guidance and strength for the days ahead. We decided to organize a special retreat a week before the expected date. We invited a select group of people who had been particularly receptive to our message, individuals from different backgrounds and beliefs, all united by the belief in the transformation that was to come. The retreat is being held at a beautiful campsite in the mountains, far from the distractions of the modern world. As I watch everyone arriving, I can feel the energy of the group, a mix of expectation, nervousness, and hope. On the first night, we gather everyone around a large bonfire. I look at the faces illuminated by the flames, seeing in them the reflection of my own journey. There's Shannon, the young woman whose art has brought my visions to life. Dr. Marcus, the scientist who detected the anomalies in the Earth's magnetic field. Sarah, a single mother who found new purpose after hearing our message. And many others, each with their own story, their own reason for being here. Friends, I begin, my voice filled with emotion. We are on the verge of something extraordinary. The 0909 portal is not just an event, it's an opportunity for humanity to awaken to its true potential, to reconnect with the divine source that created us. As I speak, I notice something strange happening. Small lights, like fireflies, begin to appear around the circle, but they aren't insects, they are points of pure light, dancing in the air. I look at Ava, who nods silently. She's seeing it too. What you are seeing now, I continue, my voice now almost a whisper, is a sign. A reminder that we are not alone on this journey. The universe and the divine is with us every step of the way. The lights continue to dance around us as we share our hopes, fears, and expectations for what's to come. Some people cry, others laugh, but we all feel a deep connection, a unity that transcends our individual differences. In the days that follow, we immerse ourselves in intense spiritual practices, group meditations, healing sessions, deep discussions about the meaning of the transformation we are about to experience. Each day, the energy seems to grow more intense, more palpable. We have planned a special ceremony for the eve of 0909. We will gather in a circle, holding hands, on top of a hill overlooking a lush valley. I hope the sky will be clear, allowing us to see the stars in all their glory. As we approach the great day, I feel a mix of emotions, anticipation, nervousness, hope. We don't know exactly what 0909 will bring, but we are preparing as best we can. During one of our meditation sessions, I have a powerful vision. I see the earth wrapped in a web of light, connecting all living beings. I see the 0909 portal as a wave of transformative energy sweeping over the planet. I share this vision with the group, and many report having had similar dreams or intuitions. Be open, I tell the group. Be receptive. Whatever happens on 0909, know that it is part of a greater plan, a plan of love and evolution for all humanity. Tomorrow will be another day of preparations. We have one last lecture scheduled, more interviews to give, more people to reach. The work seems endless, but I feel energized by a higher purpose. As I prepare for bed, I say a silent prayer of gratitude. Gratitude for the second chance I've been given, for the opportunity to be a messenger of this transformative truth. Gratitude for Ava, for our team at Sweetbread Ministries, for every person who has opened their heart to our message. The 0909 portal is coming. Soon, the world as we know it will change forever. I don't know exactly what this new world will look like, but I have faith that it will be a step toward the light, toward the love and unity I experienced during my journey beyond life. As I close my eyes, I feel a deep peace envelop me. Tomorrow will be another day of preparation, another step into the unknown. But for now, in this moment, I am grateful to be here, alive, aware, part of this great cosmic tapestry we are about to rewrite. The 0909 portal is coming, and we, all of humanity, stand on the brink of a new dawn. If you enjoyed this beautiful spiritual testimony, leave a like, comment your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to catch every new video, and help us spread this message to as many people as possible. See you next time.